I tried to get on Jeopardy for 18 years. Even before I got on Millionaire, I had a few years of trying to get on Jeopardy. So from about, let's see, I was on in 2016. So from about 1998 to 2016, 18 years, I tried to get on Jeopardy. And I want to tell you a little bit of how the process works. Every year, usually in the winter, the tryout process starts with an online test. Jeopardy will announce an online test at a certain day and time. You log in online and you have to take a 50-question test. Any of you can try it for Jeopardy. When they announce the test, you get on and take the 50-question test. They don't tell you how many you get right. They don't tell you what a passing grade is. You have no idea. Roughly 100,000 people take that test every year. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 pass it. So only about 10% of people pass the test online. Of that 10,000 that pass, 2,000 get randomly chosen for an in-person tryout somewhere. And of those 2,000 people that go to an in-person tryout, 400 get chosen every year to be on the show. So it starts with 100,000 and it whittles down to 400 that get on the show every year. In the in-person tryout, you have to take a second 50-question test and pass to be eligible in their pool. And again, they don't tell you how you do, and they don't tell you what the passing grade is. When you take the online test, if you make it to an in-person, and if you pass that in-person test, you get placed in an active pool. And any time over the next year, you can get called to be on Jeopardy. So once you pass the in-person test, it's really a waiting game. You sit around and you wait for the phone to ring, if it's going to ring. Early on in this 18-year process, I was expecting the phone to ring the next day. Or maybe I'm going to get the call. Maybe I'm going to get the call. And I didn't. And every year I took this online test. And over the 18 years, I made it to 6 in-person tryouts. I made it to that second stage. I was randomly chosen for the in-person tryout 6 different times. I was in New York City 3 times, Baltimore once, Washington, D.C., and Boston once for my 6 in-person tryouts. So after you get the in-person tryout, you're really waiting for the phone to ring. And 5 times in a row, my year of eligibility expired and I didn't get chosen. And after about the 5th time, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I knew I had done well on the test. When I take those tests, I quickly mark the ones that I'm not sure of, and I never missed any more than 8 out of 50 questions in any question that any of those tests I took. I think I got as many as 48 out of 50 right by my own reckoning and calculation, and I know that was above the passing mark for all 5 tests. So then in the interview part, I'm like, am I being too loud? Am I being too quiet? Am I being too mouthy? Am I being too obnoxious? Am I being too silent? And you just start second-guessing yourself. And finally, by the 6th time, I just said, I'm going to stop trying to figure it out and be something that I am or I'm not. I'm just going to be myself, and whatever happens, happens. And on that 6th time, after 18 years of persevering, I got the call to be on the show. It was truly a dream come true after 18 years. At each Jeopardy tryout, they always give merchandise away. They'll ask a question of the crowd, and basically the first one to raise their hand and get it right gets something. Every tryout I was at that they did this at, I was the first one to get my hand up and get a prize. So I've got a drawer full of Jeopardy merchandise. I have a Jeopardy baseball hat, I have a Jeopardy keychain and pencils, and one of the first tryouts I was ever at, I won this Jeopardy shirt. But an interesting thing, and really a statement of faith on my behalf, I decided to not wear that shirt. I zipped it up in a Ziploc bag, and I put it in my closet, and I said, I'm not going to put that shirt on until I get the call to be on the show. And that shirt stayed in my closet in a Ziploc bag for about 16 years until I got the call. And here's the first time I've put it on because I just got the call to be on the show. After I was on Millionaire in 2003, and then 2 months later in 2003, I was on the Game Show Network Live Trivia event. A couple years after that, about 2005, and again, I had been trying to get on Jeopardy since 1998, so I was 7 years into that process, but I had just been on Millionaire 2 years before. We were in another rough financial stretch. Again, I was just not getting paid very much, and I think I told you there was a span of about 5 years in there that our family was below the poverty level in the salary we were getting. I was driving to a pastor's prayer conference. I was driving from Sarah, Pennsylvania to State College, Pennsylvania, about 2.5, 3 hours away. And I just began to cry out to God again. And I was saying, God, you were so faithful and true in getting me on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and delivering us from our debt. Lord, I've been trying to get on Jeopardy. Do I even have a right to ask for something like this to have a second time? Would you be gracious enough to do that a second time? We're in financial need again. Again, you could throw buckets of money at me if you want to. Is this game show thing your will? Would you do this again? And can I get on Jeopardy? I thought I heard sitting in that car God say, yes, you're going to get on Jeopardy. And again, when you hear specifically from God, what does that do? It energizes your faith. It gives me something to hang my faith on and say, has God said? Yes, he did. So from that car ride and prayer time in Pennsylvania, I decided, just like I did for Millionaire, God has said the day's going to come that I'm going to get on. And it was about another 10 years after that time that I heard it until I got on again. And again, there's much perseverance that comes into hanging on in faith and hanging on to faith promises. I think I shared this verse the other day. Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the assurance of things not seen. When God spoke, I had assurance of things not seen yet in my heart. And in my heart, it was already real. It was already accomplished, even though my eye had not seen it. So I could say, I know God has spoken, and the day is going to come when I get on the show, persevering in faith. Now, over those 18 years of waiting, if you were to come to my house, I have an office in my basement that I call my man cave because it is my man cave, but it is dark and dank and dreary and wet and yucky, but it's my office and it's my man cave. I have a bookcase that is probably 6 inches taller than me and probably twice as wide as me. And that's pretty wide if you look at me right now, twice as wide as me. I have about 250 general knowledge books on that shelf. I have 2 other bookcases that are filled with all the other stuff I read, my Christian books and all other stuff. I have 250 general knowledge books on trivia and opera and ballet and geography and history and literature and science and sports and pop culture, and you couldn't name a topic that I don't have a book on and I didn't read over those 18 years. And I have a pretty simple method of study. I read a book, I highlight the important stuff that I want to read, or that I want to remember as I read, and then I'll go back and I'll review that highlighted stuff. So over those 18 years, I read and reread and restudied those 250 general knowledge books and easily tripled my knowledge base before I got on Jeopardy. That's an important thing. When God speaks a promise to your heart, there's really not just a sitting back and waiting. I said before, God co-labors with humanity. There's work we can do and work hard to see the promise established and to see his kingdom established. So I tried doing my part. I spent 18 years memorizing state capitals and presidents and Broadway shows and everything imaginable and easily tripled my knowledge. I think that God knew at the beginning of that process I wasn't ready to get on the show and do well. But by the end of those 18 years, I was. And I said before, the process is as important as the product. God made me the kind of trivia person that I needed to be to get on the show. And it's the same with our lives. As we're hanging on to a promise that God has spoken to us or looking for some kind of breakthrough and deliverance, God is making us the kind of son or daughter that he wants us to be during that waiting season and during that time of perseverance. And I believe that that time is more important than the end product. I learned how to be a Christian of faith and a Christian of perseverance and a Christian of tenacity through that 18 years. Was it frustrating? Yes. Did I have questions at the end of every year that my eligibility ended up and I didn't get on the show? Yeah, because I didn't know when I was going to get on the show. God told me I was going to. I didn't know if it was going to be in 20 weeks or in 20 years. So every year that went by, I'm like, God, what's up? Okay, another year of waiting and perseverance and tenacity and faith. When I finally got the call, and that's what people in the Jeopardy community call it, the call, capital letters with quotes around it, the call. The phone rings, I pick it up, it's like any other phone call. Is Jeff Crosby there? Yes. Jeff, this is Sarah from Jeopardy. We'd like to know if you'd be interested in being a contestant. I actually said out loud, if this is one of my friends messing with me, I'm going to kill you. I said that into the phone. This is not a funny joke. If this is one of my friends, this is not funny. And she laughed and she said, no, this is the real thing. This is it. We want you to come on the show. I have never had this happen in my life. My knees got weak. I had a hard time standing. My heart is beating out of my chest. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm just not. I had a hard time standing. It's the fulfillment of an 18-year process. It's been the goal, the dream for 18 years, and to see God's faithfulness and to see it happen. I had a hard time standing. I'm trying to catch my breath. I feel like I'm having a heart attack, heart palpitations. And it was just an exciting, exuberant time. When the show aired in April of 2016, we flew out to LA where they taped in February. I had never been to California in my life. We're in Southern California, right outside of Hollywood, in a suburb called Culver City. That's where the Jeopardy studios are. It didn't get below 70 the whole week in the middle of February. I'd never experienced that in my life. It was quite a blessing being out there. Now, when I got on Jeopardy in 2016, this was 10 years after I had initially hurt my back. I think I told you travel is exceedingly difficult for me. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow in the bad. And I had to fly out to California. I've only had to fly once, and I'm flying again to St. Louis in September. I'll talk about that tomorrow. So I've flown once since I've hurt my back. The second time will be in September. If I fly, I have to fly first class. It has nothing to do with being hoity-toity or wanting to be pampered. I just need the extra space and comfort if I have any chance of making it. And then when I'm in an airport and you're walking from one end of the airport to the other, I can't do that. My wife has to push me around in a wheelchair. And I still have a hard time not feeling self-conscious about that and a little embarrassed. I don't know why. When you transition from being able to walk long distances to not being able to walk long distance, I just still kind of struggle with that. But God is giving me grace to do that. So my wife is pushing me to the airport. And just the whole time I was out there, I was exhausted and in terrible pain. And even while they're taping on the set, I was just in a lot of pain. They're extremely accommodating. They bent over backwards to make sure I was comfortable and I had what I needed, not unlike you folks have done here. I'm very, very thankful for how I've been treated here. So I didn't stand behind the podium to play the game. I probably couldn't have for a long taping day. They tape 5 episodes a day, 2 days a week, so 10 episodes a day. But you only stay around if you win. If you win, you go right into taping another episode. So I was sitting on a chair not unlike this behind the podium with my fanny fluffer. They let me have my fanny fluffer out there and my back brace on. But it was still a long, exhausting, painful day. And my wife thinks about this a lot. I think about it a little bit, but I don't too much. She's like, man, if Jeff wasn't in pain, he would have done even so much better than he did. And I don't know what to make of that. God gives us grace to do what we need to in affliction, and I got through it. It was very difficult, painful, exhausting, tired. It took me, I can't remember, it was 6 or 8 weeks to recover once I got back home, just to get back to feeling my normal again. I was just in terrible pain and exhausted for about 6 or 8 weeks until I felt back to normal. If I had to do it again, you're darn right I would. You can take my leg off and take my spleen with it. If you get a call from Jeopardy, I'm going to go out there. So God gives us grace and gives us strength and gives us capacity to do what he calls and what he has allowed us to do. This is this isn't the contestant entrance. This is the entrance that my wife came out with me, and my brother John, who's a year older than me, met us there in California. And this is the entrance they went into the Jeopardy studio. Out in the lobby, they have a mock setup, and you can stand behind it and get your picture taken. So this isn't the actual game. This is me on the right, my wife in the middle, and my brother on the left. And as you can see, my wife is beating our butts. She's got the most money. You don't actually play the game. Those totals are there all the time. And the people fight over, I want to be the one that wins, blah, blah, blah. But there I am on the right, and my wife is in the middle. This is the picture my brother took of the studio during the warm-ups. All the contestants in that pool, there's something like 15 there at a time. You all get a chance to go up and practice a little bit, and my brother took the picture there. That looks a lot like Reg's head there in the foreground. So I don't know if he was there also or not. I guess he... All right. All right. Jeopardy has a website, and every week they have pictures of the contestants that are on, and there's my picture on the Jeopardy website of this week's contestant, Jeff Crosby, Rochester, New York. This is from my second game. You might not be able to read it, but under my name it says returning champion. I won my first game. Going into the final question, I was in second place. The current champion was in first place. If the current champion answers the final question right, most people know how to bet to lock out the second person. So if the person that's in first bets correctly and knows how to bet, if they answer that question right, they're going to win. So if you're in second place, really the only hope you have is if the first place person misses it, and you know how to bet properly. And there's a whole strategy thing. There's websites devoted to how to bet on Jeopardy. So I'm going to try to explain my strategy to you. It's a little confusing. The first place person doubles the second person's score and adds $1 to it. So if the first person has $10,000 and the second person has $6,000, if the second place person bets it all, I'm going to have $12,000. The first place person wants to make sure he ends up with at least $12,001. So he's going to bet $2,001. If he gets it right, he's going to beat me by $1. My only hope is if he misses it. So I do the math. He's going to bet $2,001. If he misses it, he's going to end up with $7,999. I want to make sure I have $8,000 left. So if he misses it, I want to make sure I have $8,000 left and I end up winning. I don't want to bet at all because I am negating the chance of winning if he misses it. If I bet correctly, I can still win even if he misses it. So that's what I did. I did the math. I doubled my score, figured what he was going to bet, subtracted that from his score, assuming he was going to get it wrong, and I bet to have $1 more than he did. And by God's grace, it worked like a charm. It was a very difficult final Jeopardy question. All three of us missed it. I ended up with $2 more than him and won my first game because he bet according to script, I bet the way I was supposed to, and ended up winning by $2. This is my second game against Sabrina Fritz and Paul Beelan. In the first round of this game, Sabrina's a college student. She was like 20 years old or something. In the first round, she absolutely beat my butt. At the end of the first round, she had like $9,000 and I had like $2,000 or something. And I barely have any memory of this, to tell you the truth, but apparently I completely dominated in the second round and answered almost all the questions. And going into Final Jeopardy, I was back in the lead. I came back from a $7,000 deficit in the first round, and I was in the lead. So now I was in the position of doubling her score, betting $1 more than that. We got a very easy Final Jeopardy question. All three of us got it right, and because I had locked her out by doubling her score and betting $1 more, I won my second game also. So I'm a two-time Jeopardy champion. if I could ask you for a prayer request, Sabrina, she quite early and proudly announced that she was a lesbian to the rest of the contestants. And since then, she has identified as transgender, and she's actually begun to transition, and she now calls herself Charlie Fritz and presents as a man. So my heart is burdened for her, and if you think of it also, I'd appreciate your prayers for her restoration and her salvation. Everybody gets their picture taken with Alex Trebek. I have this framed above my computer in my man cave in my office at home. I should tell you, I lost my third game, so I was a two-time champion. In my third game, do people, any here watch Jeopardy at all, on and off? Yeah, most people do. A lot of things you can control, a lot of things you can't control. One of the things you can't control is who finds the daily doubles. Daily doubles is you hit those, you can bet some or all of your money. So you can literally double your money in the midst of the game by hitting the daily double, betting it all, and getting it right. In the game I lost, the gentleman that beat me was a great guy named Ken Sansone. I met him and his family afterwards. We hung out together. Really nice, fine family. We had a good time hanging out and chatting together. He found all three daily doubles and got all three correct. If you take those daily doubles away, our scores were the exact same, $14,000. But he basically doubled my score by finding those three daily doubles, something that I couldn't control. And I'll tell you a little bit about my processing with God afterwards, but that was solely how I lost. He found the three daily doubles and answered all three of them correctly. This is me after my second victory. The answer there says, what is Phobos? Phobos is one of the two moons of Mars. I can't even remember what the question was. I think it was, this moon in the solar system means fear in Greek or something like that. And like I said, all three people got it right. You can see I have $21,801. I doubled Sabrina's score and added $1 to it, and that's why I got $1 and I won. And I did want to find some way to give God glory in that moment, and that's what I did. And this picture actually came from a friend of mine who was sitting at home and took a picture of the television screen that she was watching and then subsequently emailed it to me. So I was really very appreciative to have gotten this thing. We were told at the end of the game, everyone is standing up on little platforms, and they're different size platforms depending how tall you are. If you ever notice, everyone on Jeopardy is pretty much the same height. They're not. I'm 6'2", and I'm taller than pretty much everybody, but they just change the size of the platforms that you're standing on. We were told to not, kind of the natural reaction once a game is done, to like to shake hands with other contestants. We were told not to step off those platforms to shake hands. I don't know what got into me, but when I got beat, I wanted Ken to know that I was just blessing him. And I stepped down and walked over to shake his hand, and I said, you did great. God bless you. I hope you win again. Again, I just wanted to be an upright man of integrity and bless him in the name of Christ. And nobody yelled at me for stepping off the platform, and it seemed to go okay. All right, I guess that's the last one. Once we were all done, there's the contestant coordinator for Jeopardy is a woman named Maggie Speak. She's at all of the in-person tryouts. There's like 12 sites around the country where they do in-person tryouts. You know, Seattle, Portland, Washington, D.C., New York City, Tampa, all over the place, and it changes every year. She goes to all of them, and she coordinates the contestants, and she's also the contestant coordinator on set. She handles all the behind-the-scenes stuff of making sure the contestants are well taken care of. She is the most over-the-top, boisterous, funny, outgoing, loud, borderline obnoxious, but in a funny, loving, great way person I've ever met in the world. She's a legend in the Jeopardy community, and everybody loves her. She's just a joke a minute and sarcasm and ragging on you and making you feel comfortable and loving on you all at the same time. She's a hoot and a riot. Everybody loves her. So I had seen her in person 6 different times all over the East Coast at these tryouts. I can't say we were friends. We weren't, but she knew me by face and by name, and obviously I knew who she was. When I got B and I'm stepping down and I'm leaving, you're ushered pretty quickly off the stage, and you go back to the sequestered room, and then the next contestants come on. As I'm being ushered off, I hear a voice say, "Wait a minute, Jeff." And I turn around, and it's Maggie, and she comes up to me and she says, "You and I have been through a lot to get here. It's been 18 years, hasn't it?" And I said, "Yeah." And she just gives me a big hug, and she says, "Congratulations, so glad you finally made it," or something like that. It was so good, and she was so sweet to go out of her way just to acknowledge and bless the journey that I had gone through in getting there. It's funny, when they bring the contestants in, all the contestants come at the same time, and you sit in a section of the audience completely separate from everyone else. There's like a whole section of empty chairs around you. You're not allowed to talk to anybody. You're not allowed to look at anybody. You don't see Alex Trebek at all. The only time you see him is when he walks out on stage and does your show, and that's it. They're trying to negate the sense of any impropriety whatsoever. You don't see anyone. You're locked in a sequestered room, the green room behind the scene, and you don't see anyone, talk to anyone until you come out to do it. But they bring you out and they parade you through a gauntlet of all the contestants' family members that are with them. So you're going through this gauntlet of everyone's family members, but you're not allowed to look at them or say anything. So you're going through your family members, and my brother John is sitting there and he's yelling, "Can I tell my brother I love him? I want to give him a hug. I love you, Jeff." And they're all saying, "No, shut up, you can't talk." And I can't even look at him. And I'm walking through, and he's going, "I love you, Jeff, I love." It's like I'm going into the Coliseum for the gladiator games or something. You're being sent through, and you can't talk to, and it was like a funny and a somber thing. My brother, who I'm very close to, is a year older than me, he just wants to love on me. And he's, "Oh, I can't hug my brother. Oh, don't die, Jeff. I love you." And then in the breaks, Alex often comes out and answers questions from the crowd. If you've watched Jeopardy enough, you know that he has a bit of a snarky side. He has a bit of an arrogant side. If you miss an easy question that everybody should know, he'll say something like, "Oh, you missed the mark there," or, "Oh, I bet you really knew that one and just didn't think enough," or something. And he'll kind of let you have it. Well, in our session, he came out to answer questions. He's answering questions. An 11-year-old, and we had just done all of the warm-up games, so everyone in the audience had seen the warm-up stuff going on. An 11-year-old kid asks, "How is this game played?" All right, kind of a dumb question, but it's from an 11-year-old. Let's cut on some slack. Alex says, he looks at the stage, and he looks back, and he says, "Have you not been sitting here for the last half hour watching how the game is played?" And that was it. That's how he answered the question to an 11-year-old. So again, Alex is a legend in the craft. We all talk behind the scene. Yeah, he's really smart and he knows his stuff, but he can get a little snarky too if he doesn't like what you said. The other great thing that happened, probably the best, most fun thing of the whole experience was hanging out with the other contestants. You spend a lot of time behind the scenes in that green room, getting to know people from all over the country. And there was an African-American gentleman there by the name of Afam Onyema. His family is Nigerian. He became a lawyer, went to law school, became a lawyer, and he left the lawyer business to become the director of his family's missionary organization. His family has an organization called the Geanco Foundation, Geanco. It's the first letter of all the founders' children's names. Afam Onyema's father founded his mission agency, and he named it after the first letter of all his sons and daughters. And what it is, it's a ministry in Nigeria, which they're all from, where they do missionary work and medical work and educational work. They're in the process of building the only hospital in the entire region. Imagine having to travel 6 hours to get to a hospital. and they're trying to put one in the community. You may remember a few years ago in Nigeria when the Islamic terrorists kidnapped those 30 girls, took them, forced them to convert, and nobody knew where they were. Yes, Boko Haram. I can't remember if most or all of them got rescued, but they founded a scholarship organization for those rescued girls where they have a girls' school that they get them in the schools. They do birthing trainings to try to lower the pretty severe death rate of mothers giving birth, both them and their children. Missionary work, education work, they do all sorts of stuff in Nigeria. If that tugs on your heart, you can find them online, and there's an easy way to donate to them also. Again, it's the Genco Foundation, Geanco. Struck up a great relationship with this brother, and we stay in contact to this day. He lives in Los Angeles, a couple miles from the studio, and I live here in Rochester, and we probably email each other a couple of weeks, and he sends me updates of his ministry, and he's on my prayer list. He prays for me as I go and speak and all that, so that was a real blessing that came out of that, having this friendship with this guy named Afam. So I won 2 times. I left with $32,000. After tithe and taxes again, I think we had like $19,000 left over, and I bought my wife a much-needed used car. She needed an upgrade in her car, and we got her that car. I thought I had a picture of the car in this presentation, but I didn't. So that was what came out of this, was getting this car. Afterwards, I did a lot of processing with God. And again, overcoming through adversity. God, could things have been different if I had gotten on Jeopardy 10 years earlier before I had hurt my back? Could it have been different? I'm not losing any sleep about that, and I'm fine with it. Again, much of life is about overcoming through adversity, and I got on Jeopardy and I won 2 times. And maybe think of the verse from Romans 12:12, where it says, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer." There it is, joyful in hope. You have a hope. God has burst something in your heart, and you can be joyful in that journey because of the faith and the hope that you have in whatever promise you're holding before God. Being joyful in that journey and the hope you have in Christ. Patient in affliction. Affliction is always going to come, always, as you are holding something before the God and just life in general. Some of those will be wilderness season that God allows you to go through, and you learn what God has you to have, and some will be oppression from the enemy, and you have to take your stand in warfare and put on the armor of God every day and warfare against the enemy, being patient in affliction, and then faithful in prayer, bathing that whole thing in prayer. This is going to sound ungrateful, and I'm hoping I can explain this well. I'm not in any way, shape, or form ungrateful. I had very high expectations when I got on Jeopardy, and I set a very lofty goal. Again, not to toot my horn, but with the studying I did, I bet you I got into about somewhere between the top 5 and 1% in terms of what I knew compared to the other contestants. And so I went in there asking big of God, really big of God, like life-changing deliverance kind of money from God and what I was going to win. And it just didn't happen. And I had a short season of a little bit of disappointment, of not seeing that goal reached. And it was just some processing with God. It wasn't huge. God doesn't owe me anything. He saved me and redeemed me, and there's no promise that you get bags of money dropped on your front porch. How many people get on one game show? I've been on 3, and I managed to win some money on all 3. There's nothing but thanksgiving, gratefulness, gratitude in my heart. But I went through a brief season of disappointment of, gee, what could have been if this had been different and this had been different. Jeopardy is not only about knowing the stuff, probably even more important than knowing the stuff is mastering the buzzer. When the question is asked, you cannot buzz in until Alex finishes the question, and then you can't see at home, but all around the game board are lights, and you can't buzz in until those lights come on. If you do, you get locked out for like a half a second, which is an eternity. If you get locked out for half a second, you're not going to get in. So you have to time it perfectly. I never got the timing down. I fumbled and struggled the whole time, and it was nothing but the grace of God that I managed to win 2 games. I'm trying everything. I'm using my thumb. I'm batting it with my other hand. I'm using my index finger. I'm batting it against my thigh, and I just couldn't get the timing down. I had a sense before I went in that might be my downfall, and it did. Really top-level champions will ring in over 70% of the time. Now, if you think of it, there's 3 people. If it's random, it'd be 33%, 33%, 33%. Top champions will ring in between 70 and 80%, over twice what would be random. They get in a lot. When I got home, I figured out all the stats, and I got in 56%, which was better than just being random, but not quite enough to get in enough to be a top-level champion. And I think that was really ultimately my undoing, on top of Ken finding all 3 daily doubles as well. I also went through an odd season of grieving. Have you ever pursued a goal for 20 years, and then it comes to pass, and I had this, okay, now what? Now what am I going to do with myself? What's next? I no longer have to read trivia books all the time and read books on opera and business and literature. Now I can read what I want. Okay, well, that's a good thing. And I average about 2 books a week that I read, and now it's all good, godly Christian stuff that I'm reading. But it was just this, man, this season of life is coming to an end. Who am I without this Jeopardy goal to pursue? And again, the temptation can be to take your identity from the promise rather than taking your identity from the one who gives the promise. And that was another brief season of lesson that I had to go through once this was over. Believe it or not, I rarely watch Jeopardy anymore. I watched it every single day for 20 years of my life. I have a hard time watching it anymore. I think I've watched it twice in the last 3 years. And there is a little bit of not good attitude on my part, to tell you the truth. I watch it, and I see people that in my heart I feel like I know more than that guy did, and he won 3 times, and I only won twice. And I'm constantly holding that before God and asking Him to keep me humble and keep me thankful and blessing those people that have won, but I still don't watch it very much. Maybe God will do something in my heart where I'm back to watching it every day, but I don't know if I just can't be bothered, if there really is some kind of arrogant, I'm better than that guy, and that should have been me. Why couldn't I have won 15 times? So I'm trying to monitor that. Perseverance, 18 years, hard work. I read night and day. I kept a stack of books by the toilet, if you allow me to say, and that was my most productive reading time on the commode. I read night and day and highlighted for 18 years. I was faithful in my responsibility to get myself ready. Let's persevere with the call of God on our lives that He's given us, and let's be about the work of the kingdom, doing what He has called us to do, empowered us and strengthened us to do, to use His gifts to bring into being the stuff that He's called us to do and see His kingdom established on the earth.